Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. Today, something of a GMT watch special. Basically, if you're not familiar with what that is, newcomers to watch collecting, all it is a fourth hand. So imagine we got seconds, hours, and minutes. Then we got an extra hand indicating a second time zone, usually indicated somewhere with a 24-hour bezel or maybe extra markings on the dial. So very simple. You'll get the hang of it. You'll see what I'm talking about in just a moment. But of course, before I get into that, I should do my wristwatch check. I am indeed wearing my Squale 1521. I've got a new Lacoste shirt that I bought on my recent hospital visit as a little treat to myself. Because it's blue, I've matched it, and it's summer of course, I've matched it with the Azzurro, that beautiful Italian Azzurro of the Squale 1521. Perfect summer watch, especially with that little pop of color with the orange minute hand. So wristwatch check done. Oh, and I forgot, we're also going to be reviewing the Sinn 856 sent in by my good friend and patron of the channel, David. So without further ado, let's roll the intro and get into today's video. Let's start off by looking at the Sinn 856, a really cool watch, and you'll see what I mean, a really tough watch. I mean, this thing is built like a tank. Incredible timepiece. So let's change perspectives again and have a look at this Sinn. Today we are finally reviewing the Sinn 856. This is the UTC version from the legendary German watchmaker. Now, of course, if you're not familiar with Sinn by now, you really should be. It's an amazing brand that offer an impeccable high level of quality for a relatively good price. So, founded in 1961 by Helmut Sinn in Frankfurt, of course, this particular version was released in 2009 at Baselworld. So the first thing you'll notice is, of course, it is a pilot's watch. You can see that Flieger DNA so evident in its styling cues. It's just such a striking, especially that high contrast dial, those big Arabic numerals. Very cool indeed. So let's get the basic spec out of the way first, and then we'll dive into a really kind of closer look. Now I must say there are sellotape on the end of the calipers, but having said that, this one you really don't have to worry about it because it's got something very special which we'll get into in just a second. So 40 millimeters case diameter, got a thickness of, oh, very nice, just under 11. Lug to lug we're looking at 46.5, and then of course lug width 20. So a really nice kind of more mid-century size really. But I just love the dimensions of this. It makes it an incredibly versatile piece. So inside we have the ETA or the ETA 2893-2, which of course is fully automatic self-winding. We have hacking, manual wind obviously, 21 jewel movement operating at 28,800 beats or vibrations per hour. If we unscrew the screw down crown, it's got a water resistance of an amazing 200 meters. It is a tough cookie, especially for a pilot's watch. You don't really tend to see that high level of water resistance in a pilot's watch, but this is what Sinn do so well. Also what I like is, as you see, it's fully hackable. You can change the time like so. But one of its nicest features is the ability to set, pull it out to the first position, you can set the UTC or GMT, the fourth hand there, highlighted in that beautiful kind of neon lime green, very particular color, and I love how they matched it to the UTC so you know exactly what that hand does. And with that 24-hour markings on the interior of the dial rather than what we tend to see on most multi-dual time zone watches with it on the outer of the dial. That just makes reading it so much more effective. Very subtle little crown guards, not anything too pronounced. Crown is just the right size, maybe a little bit even undersized. Let's pop it back in, screw it down. Very nice threading action. Incredible. Signed crown, of course, completely brushed case with drilled lug holes. I mean, there's no superfluous ostentatious aesthetics here. It's all about function. Everything is built to do its job, no more, no less. We have sapphire, of course, a really nice flat, double coated on the inside and on the outside with anti-reflective, so it just makes that legibility so easy. So just to finish off on the movement, we have a 42-hour power reserve, really robust workhorse ETA. Just something that you can rely on, relatively affordable to maintain. So the case is really what is one of the modifications of this particular watch that makes it different, again, apart from its multi-time zone feature, to the standard 856, and that is the case is made out of Sinn's very own tegimented steel. Tegimented actually comes from the Latin word tegimentum, which means an extra protective layer. Now, just to give you an idea of how tough this watch actually is, if we imagine Rolex 904L steel is about 490 Vickers, well, tegimented steel from Sinn is about 1200 Vickers. And then they boosted that as well by an extra 2000 Vickers by this special PVD black brushed coating that they've applied to it. So, I mean, a real tough cookie. It looks like a military watch, but it really performs like a military. I mean, this thing is almost scratch proof. I would love to test it with the little Opinel here, but unfortunately this has been lent in by my good friend David. Very graciously lent in his Sinn watch, and I've got to say it's gorgeous. It's instantly become one of my favorite GMT or multi-time zone timepieces out there. I just love these hands, so legible, nice fat hour hands. It's kind of almost reminds me of a Roman sword, the blade of a Roman sword. Very generous loom, and I love the way that the seconds hand tapers beautifully and almost touches, well, it just brushes past the minutes track there. Very high contrast, kind of exaggerated by the matte black finish of the dial. Got a tiny little date window hidden away. You almost don't notice it at a distance, but then when it comes in close, you do notice it is there. But somehow it doesn't affect the symmetry of the design. Very tastefully done. And I love how they blacked out the center of the hand, so it looks like these bits are actually floating. Anyway, let's have a look at the loom, because the loom is extremely impressive and just as legible even in the dark. So let's have a look at the loom shot very quickly. Now, as you can see, the loom is very equally spread out, extremely legible with those big Arabic numerals. My only criticism is it's a shame the UTC or the GMT, the second time zone, is not loomed up as well. That would have been a really nice touch, but unfortunately it isn't. I think the numerals are just too small. It would have been nice to see that. Anyway, outstanding loom, very cool indeed. Let's take it back to the studio. So what else makes this watch very special apart from its extremely robust finish? Well, it also has anti-magnetic protection of up to 80,000 amperes, which makes it perfect for a cockpit or some situation. I mean, even if you're a sound engineer, well, I'm a former sound engineer, and if you're working with a lot of electronic equipment, especially speakers, things with magnetic fields, this would be outstanding. And so I can imagine for a pilot it would be about, you know, the same kind of thing. Everything on this watch is built for task. They've even put, and you'll notice this little thing here, this is a capsule here that changes color over time. This gives you an indication of their own AR dehumidifying technology built into the movement. And basically, you know, a watch's enemy really is moisture, and it soaks up all the moisture inside of the movement. A copper sulfate capsule inside of the watch. So this just changes color over time. We saw it before in the Sinn I reviewed you know, literally a week or two ago. They're not connected. This just is an indication to when you have to replace the capsule inside the movement. As we all know, the moisture can really affect the oils and the workings of a mechanical movement. Not only is it anti-magnetic to quite a high degree and built like a tank with its almost scratch-proof finish, but on top of that, it can deal with moisture and has an incredible water resistance. You can almost read the time at any angle. It's beautifully flat. The bezel is just very, again, nothing, no over-the-top ostentatious design. All about function and getting the job done. And there's a kind of beauty in it. It makes it unpretentious. It makes it just look exactly like what it's supposed to do, you know. And I find that very alluring. A lot of people go into that. It makes it kind of macho, you know. You can see this on the wrist of a SWAT team member or something, you know, paratrooper or something like that, especially where time zones really do matter. Very subtle little crown guards, not anything too pronounced. Crown is just the right size, maybe a little bit even undersized. So the case and the dial and all of the components completely made in Germany, with the exception of the movement, which of course is Swiss made. So you get the best of both worlds, and Sinn really do deliver on the quality. I mean, not only is this incredibly robust, but it's beautifully made too. I've said this before, in my opinion, Sinn are nipping at the heels of the high-end luxury big boys in the game. They really do. So we'll do a quick wrist shot. Okay, and here we go with the wrist shot. And as you can see on my skinny little wrist, it wears beautifully. It wears almost like a dress watch. I mean, I would imagine this is the leather strap it comes with a beautifully signed little matted buckle. Shame this is not PVD as well. The actual leather, really nice, thick and chunky, stitching on the outside, very, very nice indeed. Actually reminds me a bit like the straps that you get with a Breitling Navitimer. To be honest, I think with this kind of watch, it's better suited on a NATO like this. I'm not sure if this actually came with the watch or David bought it aftermarket, but if he did, or if Sinn supplied it, whoever thought of this combination just got it spot on. It really adds to that kind of military functional instrument watch aesthetic. The black just goes so well with the brown, really complements it beautifully. And I would imagine on the leather, without the extra bit of the NATO strap behind, it would wear almost like a dress watch. It does seem a lot bigger than it is, mainly because of that huge high contrast dial. It just, I mean, it looks huge actually, but I tell you it's not, it really isn't. If I just compare it to the Squire, it's quite flat, but it's incredible to think that this is only 40 millimeters in diameter. Absolutely gorgeous. So how is the accuracy? Well, the movement, of course, it's not the chronometer grade. It's I'm pretty sure it's the one down from that from ETA, but whatever it's doing, we're getting I'm getting a very solid, you know, plus 5, 6 seconds, something like that. So really solid performance. Obviously it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but I really have enjoyed experiencing this Sinn. I'm going to be sad to send it back. David has one hell of a watch. What I like about Sinn is that they're very kind of under the radar, but impeccable quality. Like I said, nipping at the heels of the big boys. You're getting, you know, the best of German watchmaking from relatively new brand. I mean, Sinn have only been around since 1960s, but they've done so much and have so many kind of iconic watches of their own. You know, they bought the rights to the Navitimer, for example. I mean, they've done some really cool stuff, not to mention the U1 divers and all the rest of it. So very cool indeed. So right now I think the prices are around about I think about 1,700 to about 2,000. You might get lucky, get one a little bit cheap on the used market. The beautiful thing about this incredibly tough, robust finish is that you don't have to worry about scratches so much. So let's just quickly get the weight in before we go. So 85 grams there. This is not obviously the bracelet version, so the bracelet version I would imagine is a much heavier. but very light, and it just adds to its comfort, especially as it's so slender. It makes for a very comfortable watch. So yeah, an outstanding watch. Very impressed indeed. I think Sinn have got another winner on their hands there. Anyway, let's take it back to the studio. Please let me know what you think of the Sinn. I absolutely love it. I think Sinn go from strength to strength. Yes, it's a 2009 model, but I just had to review it. Very cool GMT watch, and probably coming in definitely in my top 10. Any particular ones I missed out? Of course, there's the Breitling Chronomat GMT. I think Panerai do a fantastic GMT as well. What else have we got? There's so many. Obviously the Christopher Ward, very affordable, tastefully done with the new ceramic bezels and all the rest of it. Fantastic GMTs. But today I thought I'd share my top 5. So we'll start at the 5th position, and this is a watch. I actually owned this watch. I bought it and I had to send it back because it was over polished, but I did get to test it out, wear it, get a feel for it, and I've got to say it's very underappreciated and it's no longer made. And this is the Omega Seamaster 2535.80.80. This, of course, is the James Bond, so to speak, from the 90s. Actually, this came out, I think, in the early 2000s. This was one of the last Seamasters with the wave dial that featured the new coaxial movement before they moved over to the newer ceramics. I love this piece because you see so many Seamasters around. I see them almost as much as I see Submariners. Very, very popular watch, but this is a little bit different. It has that 24-hour complication. It has the GMT hand. GMT obviously standing for Greenwich Mean Time. I mean, do I even have to say that? I love that little dash of red. I love the way it's got the 24-hour markings on the center. It's still a dive watch with the dive time scalloped iconic bezel from the Omega Seamaster, but at the same time, because of the 24-hour markings on the inside, you can still use it as a dive watch. Obviously 300 meters water resistance, 41mm case. I love it. I think it's a little bit different from your standard Seamaster. It's a little bit more individualistic. Also, they're getting hard to find. This is a discontinued model. I've seen the price of these shoot up. It's chronometer certified, so COSC certification, absolutely fantastic. I love this timepiece. It's highly overlooked. Nobody ever talks about it, and it's a kind of forgotten GMT, and I really like it. It's the James Bond, but with a bit of an extra twist. And I think actually that GMT hand and the 24-hour markings make it a little bit more James Bond, a little bit more kind of militaristic because of that extra markings. I mean, maybe that's just me, but it's an icon, but made more unique. Just love it. So that's my number 5. So moving on to number 4, it's got to be the Orient Star Seeker. Bit of an unusual name. You can pick these up about, I think these are $600 on Long Island watches. Of course, being Orient, completely in-house, very unique design. We've got 2 crowns there. Comes in a nice 41mm size. And what's really cool about this watch, it has a power reserve. I've never seen this combination of complications before. It makes it even more unique. And that's what I love about Orient. They haven't copied anybody. It's incredibly different, but at the same time, done very well. I love the inner rotating bezel that's accessible from that second crown. You can even set it to a 3rd time zone, so very useful, especially if you're a pilot. Being a slightly higher end Orient, you do get the sapphire. It is still affordable. Yeah, it might be expensive to some, but I had to put it in a list because I think it just stands on its own. Orient are great, in-house. I mean, need I say more? Need I say more? Okay, so that was number 4. Let's move on to my 3rd. We have another Japanese entry here. This is the Seiko Perpetual Calendar Map Meter. The reference is SLT109P2. This is a quartz piece. So I neglected to mention the Orient was automatic, of course, made in Japan. But this is another Japanese watch, this time quartz. Now, you're thinking, perpetual calendar, very, very cool. Map meter, what on earth is that? Well, if you notice, there's a second crown on the I can never remember right or left, on the left, and that actually unscrews and you have a little wheel that pops out, and you can use it to actually calculate on maps. It used to calculate distance. Very odd thing on a watch. It's the ultimate navigator's watch, but makes it very unique. Seiko just do this. They make these unusual watches all the time. Of course, this is not in production anymore. You got 200 meters water resistance there. We're talking about $400 around about. Very robust. I think it's about 42. I got to see one. A friend of mine actually owns this timepiece. Very bizarre, but very unique, and I love it. It's got the compass on the bezel. I think it's bidirectional, if I remember correctly. It's not your typical GMT watch. It's something a bit different. And this is what I love about Seiko. They've always got another Seiko you've never seen before. That just something out of the ordinary. Built like a tank. You know, you got that water resistance. You got that quartz perpetual calendar, which is excellent. Anyway, so that was number 3. What is my number 2? It's got to be the Glycine Airman. I mean, there's so many versions, I wouldn't know where to start. But of course, first introduced in 1953, worn famously by pilots in the Vietnam War and several astronauts for NASA, of course. Hugely iconic. It's probably the most underrated iconic watch of all time. It's a true icon, but yet no one really talks about it enough. I love Glycine, a great brand with a history of its own, Swiss of course. Usually automatics, you can get quartz versions. So inside of the Airman we have an ETA, which helps keep the costs down and really is one of the best, most affordable iconic watches you can buy out there. That isn't going to cost heaven and earth. And at the same time, very affordable to repair and maintain. There are so many versions available, so many different colors. There's modern ones, there's retro ones, there's ones quartz automatic, there's ones entirely luminous dials, there's PVDs, there's different sizes. You get the big huge 44 millimeters, then there's the small 36 millimeters ones. I absolutely adore the Airman, and what makes it special and different is that little second crown that unscrews the bidirectional bezel. Not all of them have it, but tends to be one of the overarching features of the Airman. Very cool watch, and predates the Rolex GMT by 1 year. So in a way, it's probably the GMT watch. Very cool indeed. And of course, talking of the Rolex GMT, it has to be the number 1. And here's my one, the little Pepsi. Now this is the GMT Master 2 that came out, I think in the 80s if I remember correctly, but the original, the GMT Master, came out in 1954 in collaboration with Pan Am or Pan American Airways, obviously designed for pilots. It's the most iconic GMT watch of all time, incredibly sought after. The price has shot through the roof recently. You can get it in various combinations, the colors. There's the Coke bezel, there's the all black, of course there's the root beer version. What else? There's a gold, there's and now of course with the newer ones you got the ceramic. I actually own the ceramic version as well. I ended up selling it. Just didn't work out for me. I actually prefer the pre-ceramic GMTs from Rolex as opposed to the Submariner, where I actually prefer the ceramic. That's just personal taste and preference, but trust me, you can't go wrong with a Rolex GMT. It's just such an iconic, legendary timepiece with a very unique history of its own. I mean, do I even have to go into it? I've reviewed mine. I've talked about them numerous times, but it is, of course, my number 1. Other GMTs of note, there's also the Tag Heuer, the newer one, the Formula 1 GMT that I had and sold. That's also a great one. What else is there? There's quite a few. You could even get the Navitimer, the Navitimer World. If they made it in a 41mm size, I would have it without a doubt. Unfortunately, I don't think they make it in the smaller sizes. Maybe they do. Anyway, guys, if you know, please please let me know. But anyway, those are my top 5. Please don't forget to add your favorite GMT watches down in the comments. I love hearing back from you guys, so don't forget to do that. Of course, thank you very, very much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it and found it useful. It really does help me. And as always, guys, I'll catch you in the next one. Okay, ciao.